As far as last week's game against Idaho, I believe that our football team at the line of scrimmage on the defensive line and the offensive line had their most physical game. I thought that followed up a very physical week of practice and a lot of emphasis by coaches and teammates to just play the game more confident and more physical, and I thought that showed up. I thought that the team came prepared to fight, and knowing that we were down to the third quarterback on our depth chart, and they all rallied behind Shea. There's a lot of respect in our program for Shea, the way he goes about his daily business. We were anticipating that Hank, wouldn't be available for the game. We were hopeful. Cerm practiced all week until Thursday, and then was not able to go for the game. So that put Shea right in the crosshairs, and I thought he did an excellent job. I thought that the way that he presented the ball in the run game in a neutral position and really rode the mesh and kept Idaho's defense honest and opened up our run game a little bit, especially as the game went along. I thought he managed the game very well, and clearly we struggled in the passing game to produce many explosive plays. But Shea several times in a situation where he's getting pressured, he got back to the line of scrimmage. Other times got rid of the ball on time, and gave us a chance to win in the very end. And nobody on our sideline or in the game had any issue at all with 4 minutes left in the game, and we're down by 7 points, and we have the ball and an opportunity to go and score, and to potentially win or kick a PAT for overtime. That was the appropriate time to take a risk. We went with a hard count, got their defensive end to jump, but clearly not in the area that it would be an infraction or flag thrown. So he thought he had what we call a free play in that situation, and it ended up being a great play by Idaho's defender to bring down the interception, return it all the way up the sideline and then back across the grain for the score. We had some great efforts on that play to try to get to him, and just failed in that moment. This week, an outstanding opportunity for us and an outstanding challenge to go on the road against a team that has beaten teams that we've lost to. So from that perspective, a win would bring a lot of validation to our preparation, our improvement, and just the opportunity to chase a victory. At this point, there are a lot of people who feel disappointed about our overall record, and yet encouraged about the way that we go out and fight every week. I'm one of those. I feel that way. I know a lot of our players do. That's the feedback I get from them. And we're just excited to have another week against a quality opponent.
Is Shea going to start Saturday at NAU?
Shea finished the game as our number one quarterback. He'll start the week as our number one quarterback, and he'll have every opportunity to be the starting quarterback. But I would answer the same way any position that you asked on our team. I think David Afari has been our starting running back all year long, and if you ask me if David Afari is going to start, I would have to give the same caveat. There are too many unknowns. He's got to make it through a week of practice. He's got to practice well. He's got to show up for. We have 7 meetings a week. We have 4 lifting sessions. We have 4 practices. They have to show up on time. They have to perform. They have to bring energy every single day at every single position. I always anticipate that the player who started the previous game will start the next game. So that's probably about as honest and forthright and encouraging as I can answer your question. I believe that Shea would start in the next game.
Does some of that also depend on the health of Jacob and Hank?
Oh, of course, yeah. If they're not healthy enough to compete, then they won't give much competition to Shea. And if they are healthy enough to compete, then it's competition at all positions every week.
So how are Gibbs and Jacob? How are Hank and Jacob? Are they healing along? And again, I know this is always somewhat muddy,
Yep.
muddy territory for us, and I want to respect that. But are they progressing along physically?
Jacob is available for practice today. Hank is not.
So just so I'm very clear, Shea will compete for the gig as any player who started the previous week would compete for the gig again.
Yeah, Shea, perhaps if I'll make a suggestion, if you ask the question, who's the starting quarterback today, I can always give you a 100% accurate and honest answer. Starting quarterback today is Shea.
Starting quarterback today is Shea.
That's
Okay.
right.
Appreciate the interview tip because I definitely need that. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
No.
You may want to know about the game more, and I would
No.
understand that.
No. Okay. So
Shea-
as of today,
Shea is our starting quarterback.
Shea is our starting quarterback.
Yes.
Shea is your starting quarterback. Okay. Why? Why if Jacob's available for practice and Jacob is progressing, why stay with Shea?
Well, the number one reason to stay with Shea at this point is he's got the best opportunity to. He's the most likely to be available for the game, based on the fact that Serm's been injured. Number two, to always give the benefit of the doubt to the guy who's been doing the job, I think fosters competition, and that's an important aspect of our program now, especially, and it will always be, is that that playing time and those jobs are coveted, and you have to earn it and prove it every day. As do I, as do our play callers. Behind closed doors, I think there's an impression that our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, they call all of our plays and they do it in a vacuum, and the reality is that we are constantly juggling our jobs, duties, preparation as a staff to give these boys what we feel like is the very best opportunity on that given day. And so some of that obviously we do want to keep behind closed doors, and we don't want to air our weaknesses to our opponents. We don't feel like that we're obligated to do that about our staff or our players, but just on principle, the player who has been healthy, been available, battled for the team, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. They're going to get the first crack, and the second guy's going to come in practice and have every opportunity to prove that they belong in there.
When Jacob came out of the game at Montana, I guess the first time, maybe there were 3 times, was he out for lack of productivity at that point? Did he come out at that point because of a lack of productivity, or yeah, that's the question.
We would never take anyone out for lack of productivity as an individual. That's a team. The productivity is a result of a team performance. So we took him out for individual performance in that moment, and it didn't have anything to do with the interception.
Okay. On film, what does NAU show that they do well? Ed, what are you looking at them maybe with a critical eye?
Sure. I'll start with their defense. Their defensive coordinator, Kevin Clune, is a personal friend. We've worked together in the past at BYU. I have a lot of respect for the way he approaches the game. Know Coach Ball a bit and have heard a lot about him through Clune. They've known each other a long time, both defensive guys, and got a lot of respect for the way that they approach the game. They've got a tough-minded defense that plays really, really hard. They give us a lot of different looks. Can't really count on getting a specific coverage. You don't go into a game like this with a lot of guru beaters. You just have to block them up and find a way to get the ball into some space. And so they're a real challenge that way. I think they understand that defense is a strength of their team, and so their offensive coordinator, Coach Flugrad, another guy whose work I'm familiar with, more than having a personal relationship, but very familiar with his work, and does an excellent job of playing complementary football. They bring in 2 different quarterbacks They find different ways every week, new creative ways to run the football, get the clock going, allow their defense to kind of take shape in the game, and then a lot of what we would call shot plays, plays that are designed to get big yardage, riskier plays, but well designed for certain situations in the game, and they've really relied on that formula to get the victories that they've got and keep them in the games that they've been in.
Do they have a kind of a noteworthy defensive profile given Ball's background?
Yes.
Is that, maybe you answered this and I wanted to ask it directly, that's a point of emphasis for them? Are they then going to be stronger defensively?
Yeah, I don't know Coach Ball well enough to know if he came in and said, we're going to set our program up as a defensive program first, and we're going to have a complementary system of a rushing offense and make sure that our quarterbacks can add an extra rusher to the mix. I mean, that's what they are, and it wouldn't be surprising if a guy with a defensive background as a head coach decides to do it that way. What I'm impressed with is that I think they've evaluated their abilities as a team, and I think they're playing as well as they can play as a football team, and it's a real challenge to us and an opportunity for us.
Excuse me, you mentioned the run game there a second ago, and one of their backs is right up there with David. In terms of, I'll say the wrong number if I say anything at all, but I'll turn the wrong stat. But in terms of the running back rankings, let's just put it that way. I'll keep it general. But yet, I don't know. It looked to me as if maybe they're playing a couple of different quarterbacks.
Yes.
Excuse me. But DeMonte, I hope I said that name correctly, the freshman, looks as if he's been quite productive. Highest pass completion percentage.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of ways to complete a pass. What does that mean to you? If you see a guy, okay, we're going up against a quarterback, and this guy's got the highest pass completion percentage in the Big Sky Conference coming into this game, what does that, I mean, they could all be screen passes. I mean, you know the terms. I'm not going to. Right. What does that mean? How do you interpret that?
Yeah, well, in this case, they're not all screen passes. Yeah, they have the ability to get the ball down the field. I think they have a very well-designed offense. Like I said, it's in one sense it could be called conservative because they're going to find a way to run the football, and the clock will run, and they're able to get themselves out of their own end. So even on drives that aren't scoring drives, a good percentage of the time they're able to punt and flip the field position, and as I said, play a complementary brand of football. But they, both of their quarterbacks, and Adam certainly has the ability, but both of their quarterbacks have the ability to get the ball downfield, and they have capable receivers. They stretch the whole field, horizontally, vertically, run the ball between the tackles and outside, and they have, what you might call a gimmick or shot plays that show up. 3 or 4 in this game, and then a completely new 3 or 4 in the next game, and they're scoring on a high percentage of those plays. I give them a lot of credit.
I'm thinking about a story maybe later in the week on your defense. You have a lot of guys who, you've got some guys who are ranking in some categories, and yet I think overall as a unit, given up the most points, in the conference. I think I'm right there. I'm not doubting what I'm saying. How do I interpret that? I'm going to stay with that word.
Sure.
We've got some guys who are, you can see it, busting their tails out there,
yeah.
and keeping you guys in the game.
Sure.
How should I interpret what's happening defensively?
Yeah, well, I mean, statistics are
I
always.
hope that's clear.
Yeah, statistics are always an indication of how well you're playing, and it's not. We don't run from the statistics. We talk about them with our players. For us, a much more applicable statistic, with our scheduling challenges, there's teams in our conference that don't play up a level. They don't play a Washington State. They play down a level in their non-conference games. So for us, the conference statistics are a better comparison maybe if we're trying to figure out, kind of how we stack up against the conference. But so is overall win-loss record. And we haven't, in close games where the other defense outperformed us, it doesn't matter if the final score is 21-13, the other team held us to 13. And so there's a team aspect involved to playing great defense and offense for that matter. Field position, there are so many variables that go into statistics, and that's why we don't we don't really want to chase the statistics. We want to affirm them. We want to figure out where we can get better. We want to identify areas where we're not stacking up to our peers and those teams that we hope to compete against. But what we teach on a daily basis is alignment and assignment and block shed and effort.
Okay, obviously Idaho's a really, really good football team. Really proud of our kids for how they played. They played their hearts out. Really proud of Shea. Just unbelievable what he did to come in all season without really getting any reps and be able to operate the game and give us a shot down the stretch. So really unfortunate what happened, the pick six. We thought it was a free play. We got him to jump. We had done that 3 times previously in the game, and we got the flag, and Shea was just doing what he was coached. But they snap it, we think it's a free play, right? The center snaps it, and so he's just, hey, free play, here we go, let's take a shot. And unfortunately, they didn't throw the flag, and just another unfortunate way that I've never experienced before how a game ends. But it's all part of the learning process, and we're going to move forward. And I'm excited about this week. NAU got a really good football team, but we're excited about the opportunity to go out there and compete and play, and I feel like we got a good shot.
Specifically, what stood out to you about the way Shea played and handled?
Yeah, manage is a great word. I think he managed the game really, really well. I thought it was a really gutsy performance, right? It's his first career start in college. When was the last time he actually played a live football game where he's getting hit and knocked around? It's been a couple years. And, I was just proud of how he handled the pocket, how he operated, his toughness. Are there some times where it's like, hey, man, go ahead and let it rip, take that shot? Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? He led the team, and the team rallied around him, and just really, really proud of him. He played really, really tough. Sat in the pocket, didn't get super skittish after a couple shots and this and that. Just sat in there and said, hey, next play, here we go. So, I mentioned a little bit last week, but love that kid. He's awesome.
You had a couple of other. I didn't look this up as deeply as I should have, and I regret that. But you had a couple other, maybe new guys in on offense. I think Hornbeak is the main number 14. Hornbeak.
Yeah, he's played sparingly here and there.
He has. Okay.
He started to get a bigger role. We were down some guys at running back as well. I'm really proud of Jordan, how he stepped up, and I thought he played really well as well. And he's progressed, just steady Eddie progression throughout the year, and has earned our trust and been way more consistent throughout the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he's taken advantage of the opportunities he's been given. And obviously, when you do that, you're going to get more opportunities. So proud of Jordan. He had a couple really nice runs, and he's kind of developed a role and a niche for himself, and excited to see how he continues to grow going forward.
Always good to have depth at the running back position.
Absolutely.
Right. Were there any other kind of newbies, or maybe not as? I'm trying to think, and I had this a note to myself to jot it down, and I didn't do that as much. Blair, anybody else kind of?
I think for the most part, it was guys that just already kind of been in the rotation.
That's what I thought.
I was talking to a couple of our coaches on Friday night before the game, and you could take the amount of guys we have injured and get a whole nother starting 11 out of that from what we had last week. We're down a starting center who we lost in spring, a starting center who's been starting for us all year, starting tight end, 2 tackles that have starting the year for us. We're down 2 running backs that played a lot throughout the year, down 3 receivers that have played contributing roles, and then obviously CERN was down last week, and so that's a whole
Gibbs.
almost yeah. and Hank. I mean, that's essentially a whole nother starting 11. So, and that's
just offense.
That's just offense, right? And so, I'm just so proud of how our kids have just had the next man up mentality and how they've stepped up and just said, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter. Here we go. We're rolling with the next. And the best part about that as a coordinator and coach is because the kids have that mentality. A guy goes down, you feel horrible for him, but you don't flinch. Cool. That doesn't really change much. Here we go. We're still rolling. We're still doing our deal. And, you have complete and utter confidence in those guys that they're going to go in there and do the job as needed.
Let me switch to Northern Arizona, and I think what I wanted to ask is, given the head coach's background as a defensive guy, does that make Northern Arizona's sort of defensive profile more significant or more noteworthy in terms of what they're presenting to you?
No, it's funny. I actually worked with their defensive coordinator for 2 years at BYU. And so I know Kevin Clune really well. Great guy, great defensive mind. He's awesome. And so it's been fun to watch their film and watch what they do. And I know he's going to have some new things for us, as I would too. And so, you watch their film and they do what they do, but there's also a flavor of the week according to who they're playing. And Clune is he's really sharp. He's really on top of it. So I know their defense or their head coach has a defense background. He's been a lot of really, really good places and big places. And so I'm sure he has a lot of influence on that as well. But I think defensively, man, this bunch plays so hard. They play really hard. You watch them on tape. I don't think their record is indicative of what you see on tape at all. And I'm sure people could say that about us. But, man, I really mean it. They're a really spirited group. They play really hard. They've got some really good players. And I think their coaches are putting their players in really good positions to make plays and giving them a chance schematically as well to cover up some weaknesses. So, props to their coaching staff and props to their players for buying into what they're doing and playing so hard.
And I think the question I was trying to ask is their defensive profile maybe more noteworthy given the head coach's background as a defensive guy? Maybe I didn't say that right.
I haven't really thought of it that way,
okay,
to be honest with you. You turn on the tape, you look at their staff. Oh, I know this guy, I know that guy. Kind of know a little bit of their background and whatnot. But other than that, I think you look at the tape and you say, what are their tendencies? What do they major in? What are they really good at? What are their things they do that maybe show up from time to time that are more game plan specific? And then you think, how would they defend us? If I were them with their players, how would I defend us? Or how would I attack us given the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? Or given, hey, you know what? They just played another quarterback last week who has different abilities and tendencies than the guy before or the 2 guys before. And so, that's a whole other thing of, hey, how are they going to prepare for us given that we've got different guys in there now? And so, I think you take it as a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, you just to recap the Idaho game, I thought it was a good effort from the defense. Just statistically, we held them to their season low in scoring, in 20 points. Obviously there was a pick six at the end that we get dinged for, which that's just part of the game. But as far as the way we track it amongst ourselves, we held them to 20 points, which was a season low for them. And credit the offense as well, because I felt like we were complimentary on both sides of the ball. And our offense possessed the ball, they moved the ball and flipped the field, and I thought that was really helpful in us in being able to in creating longer fields for them to have to drive on. They did have the 90-yard drive, which we had three. There was 3 third and mediums that we let them out of it. One of them guy missed a tackle. The other there was some sort of defensive holding, and then the last one, which was the score, their receiver just out-muscled our guy. So the game goes that way. But I thought the plan worked. Where our plan was to disrupt the quarterback, and we kept him. I thought we did a good job keeping him bottled up. We sacked him 3 times, and we picked him off. And as far as rushing yards per carry, they were definitely trying to. With us playing behind the whole game, I thought their run percentages went up, and as far as the average yards per carry, we kept that within reason. I think it was about like 3.6 or something like that, which isn't lights out, but it's versus a team like that versus who I view as the best running back in the conference. I thought that was a great effort from the defense. So, but we've got to find a way to get out of some of those longer drives. And we weren't as great in the red zone. We did force a field goal, but we did give up 3 scores, complete scores in the red zone, and our stop rate wasn't what it needed to be either. I thought it was good. I thought as a team we played, obviously we had a chance to drive down and score and win the game on that last drive. And so I thought as a team it was a good effort, and it was encouraging just as far as the direction that we're going as a team. There's some guys that stood out, just great individual efforts. Just starting from the back end, moving up, I thought Mekhi Johnson played his best game. He did a really nice job filling in at free safety for Cam Murray, who was banged up. And I thought Smitty, Alfred Smith, he's one of the guys who had a sack, and I thought he played well. And we left him on an island against their slot receiver, number 1, and I don't think he gave up a catch. The guy, number 1, he had a couple catches in some of our zones, but we played the majority of the game in man. And I thought Smitty did a really nice job against a really good player. The linebackers, I thought statistically Jacob Stanton did a really nice job. I thought he stood out with the linebackers. And then just what's really been making our defense go is our 2 interior tackles, Sam and MJ. I think, again, they both performed at a really high level and held double teams and kept the second level defenders clean. And then both the corners, I thought Ladavion Osborne, I thought he had his best game, and he's continuing to get better each week. And Tizzy's been doing what he does. I thought he shut down his side of the field. I know that they did have the one 50-50 ball that they completed, but that's going to happen when you play as much man and as aggressive as we are, and we're okay with that. So I was really encouraged. I think we're getting better each week, and regardless of the outcomes, and just there's a lot of things that or regardless of things that we can't control, I think that we're playing good defense.
What kind of challenge does the Northern Arizona offense pose this week, Preston?
As we've studied them, I feel like their identity's been changing. I know they've had a few different quarterbacks play for them, and I think that the offensive coordinator, I know the offensive coordinator, and I think I've got a lot of respect for him and just their staff. And I thought they've done a nice job just adapting the offense to the quarterback that they're playing with. But they lean on the run game. I think they have 2 good running backs, number 5 and number 0, and I think the O-line does a nice job as well. I think the O-line there, you don't see a lot of missed assignments on the O-line. I think they're sound, and I think it's a good group. But I think they lean on the run game, and I think that they're doing a really nice job with the quarterback. Mixing in a lot of quarterback runs. They move the launch point a lot for the quarterback, and give them opportunities to make good decisions. I think they're doing a really nice job with that, and the receivers are really talented as well. Number 6 to me is really impressive. Just in studying him, I love his story and just how he started as a walk-on. I think it shows a lot about him and their program. And number 10 as well, the outside receiver. I think he's as good as any receiver that we've seen this year, especially within the conference. And so it's a dangerous offense. You've seen them put up a lot of points against good defenses. What they did against Montana, they moved the ball against Montana State, which is a really good defense as well. I think they had some penalties that wiped out some really explosive plays for them against Montana State. But I think they're doing a nice job over there, and I think they're a lot better than, just like we are. I think they're a lot better than what their record shows, and they can beat anybody, and they can beat anybody. So it's a good team, and I think they're doing it right over there. Like I said, just a couple bounces just haven't really gone their way. They had against Sac State. With a couple minutes left in the game, they were going. They threw an interception in the end zone to take the lead. Against Sac State. The week after they just beat Montana. Like just examples like that. I think they have a similar story to us. I think they've just done a good job in the games they have won. They've done a good job in finishing those games. So it's a good challenge that we have. But I think I'm just really impressed by how their offense has evolved. Just based off their personnel and who's available to them. And I don't know all the details. I know that they've got some guys who are banged up or hurt, but we're excited for the challenge. It's another good offense that we have to find a way to slow down.
Are you preparing for two quarterbacks? Number 12 seems to be the guy, maybe, I think.
Yeah, I think the last two
tell.
games it's been number 7. They're both freshmen. They're both very capable runners. They have number 18 that they use as well in some wildcat situations. Who I think he's a really good runner. 7's really impressive. He's an elusive runner.
Is he?
Yeah, he's elusive, and I think he throws a good ball. And I think he's getting more and more comfortable. And I think they're going to start feeding him more. Just opening up the playbook more for him, which they should. But I thought he did a nice job against Montana State. I thought he managed the game well, and I thought he took care of the ball. And I think it's a combination of just the offensive coordinator doing a nice job with the offense, making sure they're giving the quarterback just enough. And but they've also they do a lot. With just they're creative with the formations that they use and just schematically, they have a lot of gadget plays that they've had a lot of success with that you got to be ready for, and they've executed a lot of those consistently throughout the year. Against Weber State, against Montana, against Sac State, they had a lot of explosive plays using gadgets, and then I thought they caught Montana State off guard with some problematic formations and personnel groups that they used, and so. It's a really creative offense. I've enjoyed just studying them, and they're really creative, and I think they do a nice job. But as far as the two quarterbacks, I think number 12, they're both freshmen. I think number 12, I actually know him. I recruited him back at BYU as a safety, though.
Did you?
Adam DeMonte.
That's why
ALA.
he has defensive stats in there.
Yeah, from ALA, not ALA Queen Creek, but ALA. Gilbert,
Phoenix?
I think.
Gilbert.
I think, yeah. But he's an awesome kid, great athlete. I think he's done a lot of good stuff for him. And, I don't know what's, if he's hurt or they just decide to go another direction with the other quarterback. But I think he's a capable player who has hurt opposing defense. He's shown that he can hurt opposing defenses throughout the season already. So I think we do need to be ready for 3 quarterbacks.
3?
Yeah, just with the
number 2 as well.
I haven't seen as much number 2 lately, but
it doesn't look like it.
Really, number 7.
18.
Number 18, and number 12, Adam. So,
what's it like preparing for multiple? The thing I have to ask: what's it like preparing for multiple quarterbacks, Preston? How is that different?
Well, I think you first need to identify
Tougher?
what their skill set is. I mean, it's more to prepare for, and so we have to be strategic on our end. How many practice reps are we going to devote in preparing for each guy? And I think, so yeah, it's more to prepare for, and it's more to study, but it's not uncommon. I think that's what good teams do, is they just find a way to they find a way to influence your practice plan by some of the things that they do, and I think they do a good job of that. They've shown a lot of different things, and so it's a lot to prepare for, and I'm sure they'll have something new, that we'll have to identify early and have adjustments ready for it. Just something that they haven't shown, and again, that's what good offensive coordinators do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just like any other game, though. You got to prepare for what they put on film and be ready to adjust for the things that they do that they don't show.
You have, particularly in the last couple weeks, you have really touted your guys, your defense, Sam and Michael, a lot. But there's some other guys on that defense who are, ranking pretty well in the Big Sky in tackles. Kanapke and Jacob and Dustin and Kevon Howard in sacks. But yet, your defensive numbers are what they are. I mean, guys have allowed a lot of points. I think maybe the most in the conference. How does that jive, Preston? How do you how do those things jive? How do you say, again, you know, a second straight week, you know, Michael and Sam are whatever it was you said. I mean, you know, their performances really stood out for you. Yet the defensive numbers as a whole aren't great. How does that jive? What's in the middle there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I understand.
I'm
what
sorry
you're
if
saying.
I'm not. I've tried to
I
think
think
about
you're
how to
right.
ask this, but can you help me out with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can work.
I
through
think
this.
so. Just from a stats standpoint, you know, we really pay attention to the conference only stats
Okay.
because you're measuring your statistics against everyone else using common opponents.
Okay.
You know, you look at our first 3 preseason games we played. A team who just went to the semifinals the week before, ranked Pac-12 team, and a really good Abilene Christian team. And so we're not playing D2s and you know, we're just the
Different
quality
opponents.
of our competition, yeah. And so I think that's why it's important
Okay.
to focus on the conference only stats. And if you just look at the conference only stats, we're really, you know, right here we're 8th in the conference in scoring, you know, and that's including I think we've thrown 4 pick sixes this year. So I think if you take those out, we actually are probably in the upper half in scoring defense within the conference, top conference only. We're right in the middle. We're number 6 in yards per carry in rushing at 4.1. We're 3rd in the conference in sacks with 16, and we are leading the conference in interceptions right now. Just talking conference only. And then 4th down, we're number 1 in 4th down percentage, and we are, I think up until this past week, they went 3 for 3 in the red zone, but we were number 2 in red zone defense a week ago. Now we're number 4. So I think it just depends on the lens that you're looking at it through. I think, yeah, overall, you know, especially as you come in and we're finding our identity and figuring out who can actually play for us, who can't, what can we execute. And I think it takes a few games to get to that, and I think we figured that out by the time we got to conference, you know. And so, and as we've been as a team trying to figure out how to be more complementary, where both sides of the ball can thrive, I think you factor all those things in. But I think if you just look at the conference only, I think it looks a lot different, and because we're just measuring ourselves up against everybody else, sharing common opponents.
The same, yeah. I think I was looking at those
Yeah.
mostly. I might have strayed a little bit, but I think I was in some of that. But yeah, I just wanted to understand what you were seeing.
So-
and again, I know you're going to tout your guys.
Mhm.
You should, of course. You're going to advocate for those guys. But I just wanted to help understanding. I mean, you see a 40-0 game, and then you're saying, so and so did this and played his tail off, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what? How does that all kind of jive? And I didn't fully maybe get what you were putting down, Preston.
So yeah, and so I think if you just lift
Does that
up the
help
hood,
you?
yeah, and so I think if you break down the game, so there's 2 scores, there's 2 pick sixes,
Okay.
and so they'd scored 28, and then if you just factor in, the scoring drive before half against Montana, they took over. That drive started on our own 35,
Okay.
and so usually just the chances of scoring go up, the less they have to go. And so there are 2 scoring drives where we took over on our side of the field, and that's part of football. That's part of defense, where we've got to find a way to turn those into field goals. And so, but if you take away the pick sixes, we actually gave up 28 versus Montana, who's I think at the time they were the 5th or 3rd ranked team in the country.
Yeah.
Who's playing at a high level right now. So, like I said, I think if you take away some of those scores that are occurring while we're not on the field,
Okay.
I think it looks a lot different as far as the scoring.
Of course, I understand.
But we're going to own it though, because there's other defenses that have had points put up against them when they haven't been on the field either. So that's just part of the game.
Yeah.
And so, but that's why I'm touting those guys. When you put it in that context of what's actually happening in the field and everything, I think that makes a big difference. So.
Yeah, that helps a lot. That helps a lot. I mean, certainly you were there against Sac State.
Yeah.
Weber, I'm testing my memory here now, but Weber State, I get it. You have just said this through these interview sessions, and it just kind of dawned on me this week as to what you were sort of saying, and
Yeah.
the difference in the numbers, and I'm a little slow, but the difference in the numbers, and I just wanted to try to understand better where you were coming from.
Yeah, I think if you, just breaking down each game, like Sac State, up to that point in the season, we held them to the season low in points, in 21 points. Weber State, we held them to 14 points, and then just some, like I said, they scored on defense.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Idaho, we held them 20 points. So I think we're holding really good teams, really good offenses to below their season averages.
Yeah.
So
I want to write that a little bit more directly. So,
but
gotcha.
again, not to this. My intention is not to throw any shade at the or take anything away from our opponent's offenses or talk about our offense, because that's part of the game, and we just got to own that.
But what you're saying is,
But
in a
just
lot of ways,
addressing it though, if you look at actually what's happening, that's just and those individual efforts that we're talking about. Those are the reasons why we're playing good defense right now.